All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, over there in Oak Ridge, where I was over the weekend. I went to Buffalo Mountain Grill. Not a sponsor, could be a sponsor. Great stuff over there.
Is that off of, there's like a really weird street name over there. It's like science.gov road or something.
Maybe. I'm not sure what road it's off of, but it's not a lot else is going on. I mean, it's right there near downtown Oak Ridge, but one of my favorite spots actually in East Tennessee, because they have like wild boar hot dogs, they have elk hot dogs, they have all kinds of just different kind of game meat, and it's top-notch stuff. I'm all in on that sort of thing.
I'll give it a try soon. That sounds very interesting.
That could be our double date.
Yeah, there you go. At
Buffalo
Mountain Grill.
Mm-hmm.
On science.com highway or whatever it is. There really should be more roads. That's the first one I've ever seen in my life named after a website. It has to be because it's like a headquarter or something. Mm-hmm. But there has to, like, why isn't it like ESPN.com road in Connecticut or whatever?
That's a good question.
So you could have that. You could have a News Sentinel highway or something.
Mm-hmm. I think they just have knoxnews.com, right? And that was that one is?
Yeah, Knox News, it is knoxnews.com, right? They changed the name. Mm-hmm. So there you go, knoxnews.com road. Mm-hmm. You got all sorts of ones you could run with. If
it was like $1,000 to do statsbywill.substack.com somewhere in Oak Ridge, would you do it?
$1,000 is a lot. I don't really like seeing my name out and about. That would be kind of strange just imagine being me and I run a lot, and then you're like, oh, time to run on my own road. I would feel like such a loser, but also such a winner at the same time.
I was going to say, it's kind of a little bit of both there, Will. I don't know. But then you never know. It's like, it's the whole Twitter blue thing. It's like, did he pay for that? Or are they just really proud of Will for being the best college basketball writer on the internet, and they just wanted to recognize him for it?
It's for sure a more Twitter blue thing. It's like, did you ever see that video of a guy filming people in Boston at the bar, like as COVID was really starting to hit in March 2020? And they're like, yeah, look at all of us at the bar in Boston, you freaking loser. And they're like calling him all these names and slurs. And it's like, it's horrible, but it's really funny. And I think that is the treatment I would get if I ever had a road named after me.
Well, I think we have some time before we have to make these kind of calls. But I mean, many are saying that Will and I are in this long-term competition to see who can get a Knoxville road named after them sooner rather than later. Will it be me? Will it be Will? Stay tuned for more here on the Chase Thomas Podcast. We'll update you guys week over week on how that's going. Will, is that a Detroit Mercy shirt you're wearing right now?
That is. I've had it for like 12 years, and I break it out occasionally. Feels like the right time to do it now.
12 years. That shirt looks very like colored in. Like that does not look like it's got many washes. Do you wash it?
Yeah, I don't wear it all the time.
I was going to say, that looks in incredible condition for like a decade, Will.
Yeah, well, 2011. So, yeah, I bought it. I think I bought it like when they made the tournament, 2011, 2012, whatever year it was where they played Kansas. It was like Ray McCallum was the big guy. But I don't know. I liked it. It was like a $15 purchase on Fanatics, and it's the one piece of Fanatics gear that has aged well in my closet.
I gotta be careful. Fanatics might be a future sponsor, so that's one that's big enough that I gotta.
I love my Fanatics gear from the 2022 SEC Tournament Championship.
Will would do great for a number of reasons with ads, because like I don't know if anyone would ever know if you're doing a bid or not. Like you would just do any ad for Will. I would never know if you're being genuine or not.
The best ad reads I've found are the ones on the Flipping the Field podcast. They're sponsored by Home Field Apparel, but multiple times they've promoted the Home Field Apparel Latina collection, which is really good. There's the they had a bit where they devolved into the Bruce Feldman's Freaks list, but it was for the most racist coaches, and I think that would be an amazing article.
That would be good.
Number one is that Iowa strength coach.
That would make sense. He's not working, because remember he almost got hired as the Jags strength coach or on Urban staff, and then people were like, why are you hiring this guy? And then
forgot about that.
Yeah, oh man, the year of Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, what a time. Will, a lot of Tennessee stuff to talk about on this program before we get into the nuts and bolts. But you wrote a good piece on the loss of Zakai Zeigler and what Tennessee's going to look like following his season-ending torn ACL injury. I will say, like, in the moment, I didn't think it was his knee. Like, I understand he buckled, but, like, the way it happened, I was like, that looked more like an ankle thing to me, or like a foot thing, the way he fell, the way he got caught up, because it did go like this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, like, we've become so accustomed to seeing guys get up and, like, walk on their own accord when they've popped an ACL, where they just walk off and they're just fine, and they're not just in, like, screaming pain. So I was like, oh, this might not be as bad, or it might just be a knee sprain. It might not be as bad as, like, the torn, because that's just not usually what it looks like. And then you see it today, recording this on a Thursday afternoon, and that is the case. But it's rough for the Tennessee Vols. It's rough. I mean, he obviously has led the team in assists and has been such an important player to Tennessee over the last 2 years. But when you dove into it, like, Tennessee obviously responded in a really strong way, and it kind of speaks to what we've said in the last few weeks, where it's like Tennessee's culture is top-notch, and the guys are just... They are bend, don't break, and they could have broken multiple times this year. Did not do so. They rallied around these guys and did it. I mean, I think for Zakai, with how well they played in that second half, just kind of like, hey, he's gone. Or like this, we all want to do this for Zakai. And against the top 15 KenPom Arkansas team. And I don't know. It's weird because something I don't know if you share this sentiment, but kind of like before I get into that, like, how would you describe, based on what you saw without Zakai for a major amount of time on Tuesday night, because he did go down the first 2 minutes, and then what did you find in the piece that people can go read at statsbywill.substack.com?
Well, I think, like, during the Arkansas game, so obviously it happens, and it's extraordinarily depressing to see unfold, because Zakai is, I mean, at minimum, one of the 3 most beloved basketball Vols of probably 30 plus years. If not for, I think it's him, Grant Williams, and Chris Lofton, and that might be the complete list. I'm not sure I would put anyone else above. He's on, like, that Denard Robinson level for Tennessee fans, I would say, where it's just like unconditional love no matter what he does or where he goes, and a lot of guys don't really get that. So to see him go down, obviously crushing, and Grant Ramey really said it best, and I would agree with him. I don't think I've ever heard the arena that quiet. Like, after he went down, it was like shockingly, silent. Like, you could hear a pin drop. The only people talking were the announcers, which don't blame them. That's what they have to do. But the way Tennessee recovered from that was really impressive. I mean, like we mentioned, people are gonna, say, oh, Arkansas, 19-11, 19-10, something like that. But I mean, there's a lot of crappy teams in college basketball this year. They're not bad. I mean, they're top 20 in KenPom for a reason. They entered with a top 10 defense. Tennessee put up the 4th best offensive efficiency against Arkansas in any game this year. Held Arkansas to their 2nd lowest offensive efficiency. I mean, a kind of stunning performance in a way, and it really, without garbage time, could have been worse. Tennessee led 72-48 with 4 minutes left. I mean, it could have been a 25-point win if a couple shots go differently. But I think regardless, like you said, speaks to the culture, speaks to what Rick Barnes has built. And, like, yeah, Tennessee didn't shoot very well from 3, but I thought it was kind of surprising in the moment, and not until after I looked at the data did it really lock in for me, just how good Tennessee was at the rim and in the paint against an Arkansas defense that has generally been really good as a 2-point defense this year. But it was like the second that happened, Tennessee realized, hey, they really don't have a guy that can check Olivier Kamwa without getting in foul trouble. They really don't have anybody who can cover Josiah Jordan James off these screens unless they want to commit fouls. They don't really have, strangely enough, anybody who can stop a Waka on the boards or, keep Aidu from doing his thing offensively. And for some reason, it was like Tennessee realized their path forward immediately, which is you're going to have to be home wreckers on the boards, which they have been most of the season anyway. You're going to have to play your normal tough as nails defense. But I thought the thing that stood out to me most is, just 16 3-point attempts. It's one of the lowest numbers of the whole season. And when I looked into the data, a couple of things stood out, and I kind of wrote this piece for a couple of reasons. One, I was curious, and two, I'm going to admit I was getting a little tired of the national media rush to declare Tennessee's season over when we have seen this exact scenario play out like every single year with just fill in a blank for like every year a team picks up an injury in January, February, and everyone's like, oh God, this is it. They're not going to do it. And then, suddenly they perform just the same as they would have anyway in March. We saw it with Houston last year. We saw it with Michigan and Villanova in 2021. We've seen it a bunch over the last decade. So I wrote it out. Number one, Tennessee is actually statistically better when Zeigler's off the court, which I do find a little hard to believe. But like I said, the key thing when he's off the court is Tennessee becomes a lot more threatening down low, which I think is just by virtue of removing a 5'9" player from the game. They're a lot more dominant on the boards. And a thing that I didn't expect, but, when you think about it a little bit, it makes some amount of sense. They foul much less. I mean, we've seen, and Kevin Sweeney, who I like quite a bit as a writer, did point this out in his piece. Like he said, Tennessee's generally been at their best when Zeigler's been at his best, which don't totally disagree. But Zeigler did play Tennessee out of some games too. Really, really bad performance against A&M. Very poor against Kentucky both times out. Nearly lost them the Auburn game at home. Great player, beloved player, but he's not perfect. And that's okay. He doesn't have to be. But the stat I looked up before his injury, in Tennessee's losses this year, Zeigler had committed 4.7 fouls per 40. Tennessee's wins 2.6.
Wow.
And so removing that from the team and, putting, Tyreek Key's not a very good defender in his stead, but, Jemiah Mashack doesn't foul as much as that. Vescovy definitely doesn't. So you wonder if Tennessee can, assuming they don't get an absolute zero to replace the lost production, more or less stay about what they were. They're not going to rely on the three as much, but I think they have a new formula for finding success, and we saw it Tuesday night in a situation where they had no time to prep for it.
And I think one of the things we'll see is we'll see more variety. Like Zeigler does more of the Kyrie Irving thing inside, where he drives, and Kyrie doesn't look to get fouled when he gets inside the lane. Like he's just looking to pass. Like he's comfortable under the basket when things get tight, but he's looking to do a little wraparound to Euros or Jonas when he's inside, or find somebody in the corner, this, that, and the other. He's not looking to go up and get fouled, which is what Kyrie is just an unbelievable artist at inside. It's just like, you think you have him, and then there's just like, that was his calling card in Cleveland and everything else. It's just, he is so crafty with the basketball in his handles, and Zakai's the same way, which is his craftiness inside, and a play never being over with Zakai. However, I think, and part of this is just that, like, getting Julian Phillips back, Julian is the best at drawing fouls, right? Like that is an important part of this.
And quietly might be Tennessee's best defender.
Yes. Like, I think that's an underrated part of what happened on Tuesday that I hope people are Julian Phillips is an incredibly important piece come tournament time, and just what Tennessee, like the best version of Tennessee, has to include Julian Phillips. And part of it, what I was thinking about, like, people are focusing on Jemiah Mashack having 5 assists, and yeah, he'll probably be okay as a distributor. Like, you don't want him bringing up the ball a bunch, but the variety where Julian Phillips, I think, is going to go to the line more, because I think he's going to have to bring the ball up more. And I think Tennessee is going to have guys like when Josiah Jordan-James brings the ball up, when Vescovy, like, I think we're going to see the foul, because that's something that they struggle with, is they don't go to the line very often. And part of that was because they've become so reliant on threes, but part of it is because Zakai is so good at setting up those guys on 3-point looks that, like, getting removing someone like Zakai, because no one else was a distributor like Zakai from this lineup, I think you're going to see Tennessee get to the line significantly more with who they're going to have bringing the ball up. With Mashack, who gets to the line, and he's going to be a man on a mission inside. We'll see if he's able to keep doing that. My gut tells me threes go down and they draw a lot more fouls, and I think the defense is a lot better, because you just put Mashack in that Zeigler role to start these games. Like, you just have 5 guys who can defend multiple positions, and I think, already the best defense in the country. I don't see a slip at all. Even when people look at the steals and stuff, I think the defense actually might be better.
Yeah, I think it's plausible that they're going to be about as good as they were anyway. And, obviously it's a huge bummer. You never want to lose that quality of guy, quality of human. And really the biggest bummer, because I just looked it up, So the preseason top five lineup that I had was, Ziegler, Vescovy, Phillips, James, Kamwa. They got to play a total of 88 possessions together in the SEC this season, which is you would have hoped it would have been triple that at minimum. And it didn't work out injuries wise, and it's been that kind of year. But I agree. I think Tennessee is getting a little underrated, not just because we're graduates, but because they've had the close losses. They had buzzer beaters go against them. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, they're not number 4 as we speak in KenPom for no reason. They don't have the number 1 defense for no reason. They don't have wins over Kansas, Texas, Alabama, etc. for no reason. They're a good team in a year where there's not any, maybe Houston, elite teams. And so, I mean, yeah, it's a bummer, and I don't think Tennessee's going to win the title or anything, but who's to say, like, they can't still make the Final Four, Mm-hmm. It's the number 4 team in America.
I agree. And I'm interested to see how they handle the next 2 weeks gearing up for the tournament. Do they play a bunch of, like, does Barnes go one way, which is be extra cautious where you're like, I don't want to lose another guy, important piece to injury before the NCAA tournament? Or do you look at it as like, we're going to have to play some lineups? Because he did that on Tuesday, where he had to play some lineups that he never played at all this year. And I forgot one I wrote down where I'm like, I don't think we've seen this at all this year. And I don't remember which one it was. It was like Meshack. I want to say it was like Meshack, Adu. Let's see. It was Meshack, Adu, Tobe, Kamwa, and maybe Vescovy. It was something like that where I'm like, I don't think I've seen this year. I don't think he's done that. But yeah, I think he's going to be, we're going to see some lineups, but I'm just curious to see what he does. Does he like maximize those possessions, like getting those ramped up for the NCAA tournament where it's like, all right, Zeigler's not in the fold anymore. We're going to have a lot of lineups that have not played together very often this season. I need to get them as many reps with each other as humanly possible. I can't take my foot off the gas and just take the tournament lightly.
The interesting thing for obviously they've still got one regular season game, at Auburn. The thing I've been, a lot of people are like, oh, Auburn's desperate. They got to get in the tournament. And so whenever you see the term must-win game, it is worth remembering that it's a must-win game because that team is not very good in the first place. If they were good, this wouldn't be a must-win game. They'd be in the tournament, right?
Right.
And so I don't know. I think obviously Auburn's going to have some desperation, but situationally, I don't really know that Tennessee benefits all that much, but Auburn, one last day of rest, just played an extremely emotional road game against their biggest rival where they lost in overtime. A game that would have locked them fully in the NCAA tournament. And so you wonder like how much juice they've got left. And really Tennessee kind of matches up pretty well with them on paper, of course. You don't know about the game, but it's an Auburn team that struggles with turnovers against the best defense in the nation, and an Auburn team that struggles with defensive rebounding against the top 5 offensive rebounding team in the nation. So we'll see, but Tennessee kind of quietly has a chance to build a little momentum as they head into Nashville here on a Saturday.
For sure. What if Indiana wins the Big Ten tournament, Will? Where do you think their seeding winds up? What happens to Indiana?
It's going to be a really rough go of it on Twitter if they win the Big Ten tournament.
It's not out of the question. It's either them or Purdue is the favorite, right?
Their irony-pilled fans are awesome. The super serious fans, brutal. It's the reverse of every fan base, actually. So I would peek them out, and this is just based on the bracketologists I trust, like Lucas Harkins at Heat Check or my man Bracketville. It seems the highest they can get is a 3 if they win the Big Ten tournament, which is about fair, like given who they would have beaten then, because so their last game left is Michigan on Sunday, and then you assume you've got to beat like a Purdue or like a Northwestern or Iowa level team at least once, if not twice, to get to the final or to win it all. So, they're going to have a chance to build a resume, but 4 is most likely. They're a really interesting team on the whole because metrics don't like this team. 28th KenPom, 31st Torvik, but it is relatively easy to explain. So they're above 500 Big Ten, I think 11-8, pretty solid-ish resume on the whole. The problem is that they rank 8th in scoring margin in Big Ten play. They are barely above water in terms of points for versus points against. And they've played a tougher schedule than like Maryland or Rutgers, but even schedule adjusted numbers have them as the fourth best team in the league, and that includes being behind MSU and Michigan. I would like to buy in on them because Trace Jackson Davis, blast to watch. Mike Woodson's super crazy facial hair that just gets thicker every day. Really enjoy that. I don't know it. I hate to say it, but if they were like a 3 or a 4 seed and I was the 6 or the 5, I'd be quite happy. Man. Because I don't know if they're going to get there. I don't know if I'm going to have to play them. I mean, they're not a bad team by any means, but at some point the numbers are the numbers.
And it's just weird too because it's like 3 seed's amazing, and where they've been and where Archie, like they've tried so many guys to get back to Hoosier basketball, and I think Woodson's done the best job in a really, really long time, and it's still just like, I want to play them come tournament time. It still just doesn't feel legit.
Yeah, and it's funny. So this team, 20th in Ken Palm, the Archie COVID year team was 34th. They would have been about like a 10 seed or so. But it's because this team wins close games and that team didn't. This team is going to be a 3 or a 4 seed, while that one, could have potentially been in the first 4 had that tournament happened.
Man.
So it's all in the swing of it. And of course, this year's weaker at the top, so that helps them.
For sure. What gives here, Will? Arizona, when they lost Arizona State, which was your just worst case scenario, I think I sent you just Bobby Hurley's reaction to the bench behind him. So I'm clear. It seems likely that those Arizona fans have been saying stuff to Hurley in that bench all game long, and he enjoyed that game winner. But Arizona, with that loss, it was their 5th to a team ranked in the 50th or below in the net this year. Why has Arizona been weirdly bad against bad teams?
Well, I wouldn't even call it like bad team. I think part of the problem is that the Pac-12 as a whole, outside of the top 2 teams, is quite nasty this year. UCLA and Arizona really, carrying the load for the rest of the conference. I mean, the only other team that, looks, I would say above 60% to get in is USC. And even then, they're probably one bad loss away from being in trouble. So I think it kind of goes back to how unfair it is for the one bid league teams in a way, where if you play 150th best over and over and over, eventually something's going to go wrong. But I would say it's been really notable how it goes wrong for Arizona this year. And this is not related to efficiency, it's just, how well you do on the boards. 4 of their 5 losses have come against top 100 offensive rebounding teams. And all 5 of their losses have come in games where they've lost either the turnover or the rebounding battle, as well as, all 5 they've lost the shooting battle. They don't really produce, for such a good team, they don't produce much shot volume. Not very good defensively, of course. They have the shooting on most nights, but the thing about, most nights is it's not all nights. We saw last year, they, on a normal shooting night, you probably beat Houston, you go to the Elite Eight. But they didn't shoot well, and they didn't rebound or prevent turnovers well enough to get extra chances, which is what Houston does, 24/7. And that's, that gives them that higher floor in those low shooting nights. And so the problem I see with them, and you're kind of seeing it foretold in these losses, negative turnover margin this season, just good, not great at rebounding, and a bad defense. I looked it up in the little database I have, because I have lost the ability to have a normal life at this point.
Same here, man.
Yeah. So 20 top 4 seeds last 20 years. Sub 50 defense, negative turnover margin. 1 made the Final 4. And they had Dwayne Wade on the roster. So that was exactly 20 years ago was the last time a team overcame all that to get through. So I'm going to need to see something from Arizona in this next week, whether it's better turnover prevention, more aggressive defense, or just better work on the boards, because if they can't provide the shot volume, whether on offense or preventing it on defense, to overcome an off shooting night, I don't know if they can sustain it for 4 games in the tournament or further.
That's fair. When it comes to Villanova, there's a really good piece, like Dana O'Neill, who's one of my favorite college basketball writers over at The Athletic. She had a piece. She spent a lot of time with Kyle Neptune at Villanova. And it felt like they were kind of turning the corner when she spoke. I think they won 1 or 2 games in a row. I forgot which point in the year that she talked to him. And Justin Moore's back, and that's been like an under-talked about part of all of this is like they lost their best player to a really gruesome injury last year, and that makes taking over a new job hard when you already out of the gate don't have your best player. Dixon's hitting threes. Again, you look at this group, I mean, they blow out Creighton, a really good Creighton team that we both like. It's starting to feel like they won 5 of 6 following that win. I think Villanova is figuring some stuff out. What has changed with Villanova? And if they were to run the gauntlet in the Big East tournament and win it, are they sneaky dangerous with a healthy Justin Moore and company come tournament time?
Maybe. I like this Villanova team and what they figured out. You know, I don't think that they've got like a special formula necessarily. Like they're still kind of what they always were. They're actually on track to, I think, tie their record they set last year for free throw percentage. They're at 82.9 as I looked earlier, which is insane. I don't think at the gym. I think my record is 88 out of 100. And that was like a perfect day at the gym. It's usually like 70, 75, 80.
Is Tennessee just like the reverse of that, 28? Do we go 28% for Tennessee on the year?
I think, well, Tennessee shot 68% on Tuesday. I was like, okay, not bad.
Villanova's like doing acceptable laps all day long. If you go anywhere near 60%, it's like another lap. What are we doing?
But so Villanova, you know, I think having Justin Moore back obviously helps. Like he's been their second best player since he came back. Eric Dixon's kind of turned into the star of sorts. But a good part of this is just like they're better at preventing turnovers than they were before he came back. You know, better at avoiding fouls. Been generally a little better defensively as on the whole. Like still not what I would expect from Villanova, but they're at least tolerable on defense now. And I think adding, you know, Moore back, who's not like an elite defender by any means, but is at least, you know, it's better than playing, you know, the Archidiakono kid or whatever out there. So I think, you know, that helps. They've played like a low-end top 40 team since Moore came back. When he was out, it was more like top 90. So, but the funny thing about this and about the Big East this year, so they went from playing like the 7th best Big East team when he was out to the 5th best Big East team now. So it's not like a huge jump, but looks like they're going to be 6th seed in the Big East tournament. And the good news about that, well, the bad news, you got to play an extra game. The good news, the extra game is Georgetown. So free win. Patrick Ewing has passed away of dysentery from the Oregon Trail. And you're going to follow that likely, not for sure, but likely with Providence in the quarters. And Providence has kind of quietly lost their close game luck that everyone told you was unsustainable. And guess what? It was. Thank God. I think they're going to have a pretty decent shot at a Big East semifinal run. And even if it's not Providence, it's not like Creighton is unbeatable. They just beat Creighton. So either, and yeah, they got swept by Providence, but yeah, third time you get a third chance to beat somebody. You'd hope you could, you know, take advantage. So I would enjoy seeing them make it to Friday. I got them mixed up, and take on like Xavier with nothing to lose. That would be pretty entertaining to see, you know, a healthy Villanova, because, you know, if they get in the tournament, and it's not to say they will, but it's, you know, if they do, probably 11 seed or so feels about right. And if you're a 6 seed and it's like, I got healthy Villanova on the other side, you're sweating a little, right? Like it's not to say like it's not the worst possible draw you could get, but it's not a good one.
I would agree. Is Jay Ladner a sneaky, intriguing fit for the Ole Miss job? Will?
No. I like Jay Ladner quite a bit, and I think he has finally turned it around at Southern Miss. The problem is that if you were to hire him like today, you would be hiring a guy who is 49 and 71 at his current job. And so, you know, the 3 years before this one, and obviously this year's been amazing. You won the Sun Belt, but 3 years before this one, 13th, 14th, 14th in a 14-team conference, and a total of 10 conference wins, 22, 17, 26 losses. And he's gotten, better, but my problem here with hiring him would be you run into a little bit of the Mel Tucker syndrome,
Hmm.
where I mean, no qualms about it. He demolished the portal this year. Every
Hmm.
single good player he got in his team, he got in the portal in the offseason. Can you do that 2 years in a row and bat 1,000? It's really hard to
Hmm.
sustain that. So my preference for them, and the name that had kind of gotten buzz initially, is Dusty May at Florida Atlantic.
Hmm.
That you kind of need, and through no fault of Jay Ladner's own, he's 58,
Hmm.
and he is a Southern Miss alum for the record.
Yep.
So I wonder if he would just like prefer to stay anyway.
Hmm.
But Dusty May, younger, pretty fun style of basketball. You can kind of go with the whole thing of like, oh, the last time we hired a Conference USA coach, it didn't go so well. But Dusty May and Kermit Davis are very different individuals,
Mm.
and I think he would be much more of a fit there,
Mm.
and a lot more energetic than Kermit is. So
Yeah.
I could see that, and the real rooting interest for me is that they just don't hire Chris Beard, to be honest.
I don't. Maybe I'm too optimistic. I don't think Beard's gonna get a job this cycle.
I think he will.
Do you really?
The thing is that he for a couple of people in the quote no, he either rents or owns a house in southern Mississippi, and that is the reason he's being rumored for Ole Miss.
Man, I don't know.
But
I hope that doesn't happen.
the other one to watch, strangely enough, that I have heard, is one William Wade, if he doesn't get a show cause.
Well, when does that get settled? Do we know?
Probably 2040 at this pace, given the NCAA's general way of working.
I don't. Yeah, there's not. It's just not a great job. Like I don't. The sad part is like, it doesn't matter who you hire. Like I don't think you and I see a path to Ole Miss basketball being good sustainably.
No, that's the thing is they have the SEC money, but so does
Yeah.
everyone else in the SEC. You're not like you're not really making any waves there, and so I would kind of prefer it as a neutral in this situation for Dusty to stay at FAU, because it just kind of feels like there's more opportunity to build that within the CUSA than there would be to somehow build Ole Miss into something it's never been before.
Yeah. Your favorite buzzer beater over the last week in college basketball was what? Well,
All of them, because they didn't happen against Tennessee. Which it's so for me 3. But it did seem like there were 500 of them last.
it felt
weekend,
like
right?
over the last week. That's why I asked you this. I feel like there were a lot. There were a lot.
So, and I went through that NCAA buzzer beaters account. Like Sunday, it was after the Hunter Dickinson buzzer beater, and I counted, including that one, and there had been 18 in the previous 48 hours, and I was like, "This is not like normal, right? Surely." And so I would say number 1, Caitlin Clark, wonderful to potentially walk off your home court in that fashion, as good of a player as she is. I mean, all-time iconic moment. Number 2, the Joel Embiid one that didn't count.
Yes, he's done that twice, by the way.
Insane shot.
He's done it twice.
That thing came out with like a 4-degree launch angle and was perfect. That was a line drive, and it was a beautiful shot. Number 3 out of bias, Hunter Dickinson, because that shot, when I saw it launch, was like, that's going into row 2. The way, I mean, he's like a solid shooter, but he's not elite or anything. But I think the like objective winner is probably that Arizona State one, right? Because it with what it means to them, like being able to potentially now. I mean, I just checked Bracket Matrix, and they're in the field as of now. Tell you what, real sickos here when the current final first 4 game, and I promise this is true, Arizona State, Wisconsin. Please, God, put Utah State in instead of either of those teams. At least Utah State's very fun to watch. Wisconsin, I don't. It's like watching somebody throw a piano off the top of a building. It may be fun for you. I don't know.
I mean, not for me.
No, that piano's got a lot of tunes in it.
Man, ugh, I don't even want to think about that. Last thing before we do our stats of the week here. I thought it was hilarious. You know what's funny to me? It's like certain people on Twitter, the hand wringing over the Fran McCaffrey stare down with the official, which I've watched no less than 4D times over the last week. Objectively hilarious.
It's funny.
Like, anyone who was like, just a terrible look for Fran, I'm like, disagree. That is actually one of the better ways to go about it, because we see so many coaches in this league just scream and scream at these officials and never get teed up. And we're like, what more do they have to do to actually get teed up? And I'm not going to name a certain SEC coach where I'm like, I don't understand why this coach does not get teed up ever. And then you have like
it would be really interesting if that coach chased a referee across the whole court on Tuesday night during a timeout and did not get a technical.
You can put one, folks.
It would be really interesting if he was tweeting out McDonald's hamburgers and then lost 11 games in a season.
But all that being said, folks, you don't have to have the take of like bad luck by Fran, intimidation, and this, that, and the other. I'm like,
there should be a Twitter bot that captures all of the, or like just runs the or like some sort of search. It's like Fran McCaffrey bad for basketball or whatever.
And that's the wrong take, folks. As the take police, Will and I will be the arbiter here. It was objectively hilarious. This is an entertainment sport. And Fran just putting his hands on his hips like that and just staring at this man's soul. And the dude, like, it looked like the officials like try not to laugh, because it's objectively hilarious. Like, this man's just staring at him. He's not yelling at him. He's just like, it's like the dad who's just he's not even mad. He's just disappointed. Like, he just looks at it and he's like, I got nothing for you. Like, I wish I could yell at you, but what you've done is so bad and so disappointing that I'm just actually going to let you sit with it. I'm just going to stare at you and sit with it. It's delightful. Folks, don't ever think it. That's delightful. But then you also had, on the flip side, the women's basketball team. I think this is how it goes, right? We were texting about this. Iowa basketball, coaches with attitude. I like this. It's a fun identity for them, don't you think?
Famous guy with attitude, Kirk Ferentz. I have to assume like their other coaches have some attitude too. But so if people didn't watch it, I wish they would have, because it was an amazing game. The Indiana-Iowa women's game on Sunday. So before the Caitlin Clark buzzer beaters, there's this call where Mackenzie Holmes of Indiana draws a foul. She clearly travels first. And Lisa Bluter, who's Iowa's head coach, is losing her mind at the official for good reason. But I can't remember the exact thing of it. I have to look it up on video, but I'm remembering them going to the monitor to check how much time was left, and she just walks over and she says, "You effing suck," at the ref, which is awesome. If only it were Pat Adams. But anyway, Fran and Lisa together at the same school is like it's a little too powerful. It's kind of like when South Carolina had Frank Martin and Dawn Staley. Because it's like Dawn Staley, amazing coach, extraordinarily intense personality on the sideline. Generally incapable of chill on the court, which is, she's wonderful both on and off, but she is crazy intense on the sidelines. And Lisa Bluter looks like a librarian, but same thing. Extremely intense, wonderful head coach too. Whatever they got going on at Iowa really fascinates me in general, because something about the 2000s shaped their online fan base in a way that makes them far and away the most charming fan base on the internet. Like, wonderful people to interact with. But they're so kind on there, but their coaches look like a couple of the meanest people in the world. I love it.
We love to see it. Will, as we wrap up here today, your stats or stat of the week is what?
So I've got a stat of the week. I'll save my prediction for the tournament because it was Fran related. But stat that has caught my eye. So since New Year's Day, what team has won the most games in all of college hoops?
Kansas?
It's not Kansas. It's a mid-major team. And they are in the tournament more years than not, as of late.
They're in the tournament more years than not of late. What part of the country are we talking about?
Northeast.
Vermont?
It is Colgate.
Colgate
is the only team, as of the time of recording, with 16 wins in the 2023 calendar year. And they're probably going to get 17 tonight as they play, mid 300s Ken Palm team, Loyola, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Best team in the Patriot League. Don't totally know like what seed they're in line for. I would imagine like a 14. But it's the same team as everybody remembers. Number 1, 3-point percentage. Number 12, 2-point percentage. Demolished Syracuse earlier this season.
Mm-hmm.
Very fun team to watch as long as your team is not playing them from experience. So, I don't know. Colgate's in this Patriot League tournament. I think it wraps up middle of next week. I'm really rooting for them to get that auto bid.
What's the farthest they've gone in the tournament?
0 wins. They have never made it to the round of 32.
I remember they played Syracuse close one year. Is that what I remember?
They played Tennessee close one year, and that was a stressful 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Man, they have 0 tournament wins, though.
Yeah, well, they played Wisconsin very well last year and went down to the wire. But they've only made it, I think, 5 times ever is the thing.
Okay.
But even so, I mean, like, very good program. I'm waiting for my guy, Matt Langle, if he wants it, to get a bigger job, because he's been at Colgate for 13 seasons now.
Syracuse might open up soon.
That's what I'm saying. I want him to get it. I'm sure they're going to hire, like, whoever Boeheim approves, but
Greg Paulus?
Just a great coach, man.
Who says no? Greg Paulus, next Syracuse basketball coach?
It's going to be old Jerry McNamara, apparently.
Is it really? Is that like the coach in waiting?
That's what people... If they say if it's going to be a Boeheim approved hire, it's him. Which, I mean, he's 39, so he's quite young.
Hold on. Jerry McNamara is 39.
That run they made was in 2006.
I don't like hearing stuff like this. I don't like hearing Jerry McNamara is nearing 40. I don't like knowing that it's almost time for Jerry McNamara's first colonoscopy. Like I don't need to know that. Well, that's upsetting. It's very upsetting. Well, this was awesome as usual, sir. We can read you on Substack. That's what will. Substack.com. New pieces each and every day. You're just cranking them out, man.
Now $12 for a year if you sign up before March 31st, which is quite the steal, I think.
And it goes to $1,200 a year after that. So make sure that you get in before then. Yeah,
$1,200, and you're forced to watch the Star Wars prequels on loop for 24 hours if you sign up after March 31st.
How would you rank them in order?
I don't remember anything about them, to be honest. I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but I do remember owning... What is the first prequel? It's episode 1, right? Mm-hmm. What is it called?
Phantom Menace.
So did you ever get the McDonald's plates with the Phantom Menace on them? I'll look them up. I'll send them in our chat. But
okay.
They had these like promo plates for the movie, and they are still at my grandmother's house, to the point that when I went a month ago, I had breakfast off of the Phantom Menace plate, which is now 24 years old.
That's incredible.
It's remarkable. Maybe it wasn't Phantom. It's one of the. What's the second one?
Clone Wars. Attack of the Clones.
What? Okay.
Attack of the Clones.
I thought that was a. Isn't that a TV show?
It is, but yeah, Attack of the Clones.
It's Attack of the Clones is what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
But either way, 20 plus years that plate has survived.
Are you a Lord of the Rings guy? Are you a Harry Potter guy? Game of Thrones? None of that, really? Are you not sci-fi?
I read all the Harry Potter books when I was younger. I liked them a lot when I was... I don't really approve of J.K. Rowling now, but I liked the books a lot when I was younger. Movies are all right. I kind of tuned out after number 3, to be honest.
Wow. The movies are exceptional, Will.
The third one is by far the best to me. I love the third one.
Third one's very good. Prisoner of Azkaban is very good. I remember...
Lord of the Rings, okay. I like them fine, but the cult around it is a little much for me.
Not a Lord of the Rings guy. I mean, it's not even close for me anymore, like as an adult, like Game of Thrones and House of Dragon and all that. Like, I just gobbled, like, the amount of time spent with those books and all that. I'm sneaky. I don't think people would realize that, but I'm in, like... So, is it over here? It might be in the... No, I guess it's in my other room. I'm looking for the books, but I have, like, the... canon Star Wars books. Did you know you could actually, like, people have written, it's not like fan fiction, but it's like fan books, like in between the different movies and like different stuff, but it's all like they have to follow like a certain model so that the stories make sense because they're written by different authors. But I've read several of those. They're good. That's probably one of the nerdier things about me is like I'm really into reading stuff like that.
Interesting. Okay, I sent you the Star Wars plate. I finally found it, and it is episode 1. It's
Okay.
really exciting. Very visual
Where'd you
podcast.
send it?
To your phone.
Oh, okay. Let me see. All right, this is great. Podcast needs to wrap up here today because I want
It's
to see this.
it's a pod racing plate.
Oh yes, I'd never had these, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Huh?
And maybe maybe it wasn't McDonald's, but we still own all 3 because it came in a 3-piece.
There you go. They just must be really great material that they're lasting for.
They
20,
have to be,
right?
I mean, they're faded, of course. Like you can barely read out the names, but yeah, they still hold up after all that time.
But not going in the dishwasher, right? Like those are hand washing.
No, hand washed, absolutely.
Yeah. Are you a dishwasher guy or do you hand wash everything?
Dishwasher, usually. Hand wash some things. I'm actually afraid to ask my grandmother if she puts these in the dishwasher. I don't think I want to know.
I have something else I'll say about that, but off air. So that's how I will. Follow me on Twitter, read the Substack, all the good stuff, and I will talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me.